Dena, your last name would fit into a sonnet really well. It's got a good cadence.
What is the cadence? Can you say it?
Elimelech. Just like alternating syllables, you know?
A piano sonnet?
I was thinking like a Shakespearean sonnet.
Oh.
Not like a sonata.
That's what I was thinking of. I was like, okay, sing it.
All right.
Are you reading a lot of Shakespeare right now?
No, but I did go to a play recently. My stepsister's high school play, which was not a Shakespearean, which was a play about Shakespeare. It was not a Shakespearean play.
Oh, but contained sonnets.
Yeah.
Nice. What are you drinking? Looks like a smoothie.
Protein shake.
Oh, nice.
Banana. Protein powder. Collagen. Creatine, honey, peanut butter, cacao powder.
Dang.
Cow powder. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, it's up on the story now. Let me get this recording and then we should be good. Wow, this is crazy. A live recording of the podcast. Never done this.
Well, it's basically the same as we did before, right?
Yeah, but this one will go on like Spotify and stuff too. And so,
that's cool.
So yeah, because like I said, people were pretty hyped about it. So I want to give them most ways to listen to it as possible. All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the TOBU Fitness podcast. We've got a very special recording of the podcast today. So we're doing a YouTube live here. We got Dena Elimelech from, I know you've got a really extensive resume. I was going through and doing my research. So played with the Super Bloom in the WUL, played with Fury, club champions last year, and also on Team USA. So pretty extensive resume. Great to have you here, Dena. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We've also got Manny from Seattle Sockeye, captain, helping me out today, hosting this. So yeah, like I said, this is a live Q&A. So we're streaming this on YouTube right now. So we might get some live questions, but we've got a lot of questions from people on Instagram, people on Reddit, and then I've got some stuff kind of prepped as well. So hopefully some good stuff coming your way if you're listening or if you're tuning in. Dena, do you mind starting off with just telling people a little bit about your background and kind of how you found Ultimate?
Yeah, I played a bunch of different sports growing up. A lot of soccer and track, some cross country. So entering college, I was like not sure. I didn't like, my high school was a lower skill level as far as sports went. So I didn't think to pursue that as much. And then I happened upon a Frisbee booth. And I was like, okay. We played that like twice during track sometimes. So, and yeah, haven't looked back since.
Nice. Do you feel like, which do you feel like kind of contributes to Ultimate more, the track or soccer? Or do you feel like there's another sport that maybe carries over more?
I think soccer. I think you build like a lot of really necessary skills in soccer. And since we were like 5 or 6 years old, you learn how to run, you become competitive, you're changing direction really early. The only thing that doesn't translate is the body contact, which, might not be so bad sometimes, just like positioning and that. But I think overall, that's like the most that I've played, the most well-rounded sport that translates best into Frisbee.
Yeah,
Are there any youth sports that you wish you played that you think would have translated better? Or that you just wish you played because it would have been good for you to have that experience?
I kind of wish I played volleyball in high school. Just because it's a really fun sport. My high school now apparently has a sand volleyball team, and I think I would have loved that because I like that now for fun. I don't think, it'll translate as well to Frisbee, but basketball, a lot of my teammates play or played basketball, and that also translates really well. But
One of my co-captains on Sockeye thinks that tennis is the sport that translates the best to Frisbee, which I think is really interesting. And he has a pretty strong case. There's a lot of lateral movement, and hitting a tennis forehand is one of the motions that's a lot more similar to throwing a Frisbee than like throwing most other things in sports.
What about sprinting and like long term? I guess the cardio is there, but
Yeah, I mean, tennis players are pretty fast. I do think the sprinting on a tennis court is pretty different than sprinting on a field, but like the cardio and athleticism is definitely there.
yeah, I would be interested to see pure tennis players go into. I'm sure we have some. I don't know who we can.
James Pollard.
Who's up there?
James was a college tennis player, and then I think he said he just started doing ultimate to get in shape. And obviously, I think he's a lot better at ultimate than he said he was at tennis. That was pretty cool.
Okay, so that's a good data point.
What was that?
That's a good data point.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here. I think a fun question to kind of start off with is what's your biggest hot take in ultimate?
Manny sent me this question earlier, and I was like, "Oh, I'll think of one later," and I don't. Maybe I don't think faking is all that. Oh no. Okay, I like faking when it's
like pump faking.
Sometimes it's helpful. Yeah, but sometimes it's like you don't need to do that. Recently I got into this discussion. The barbecue backhand to the open side, for some reason that's become like, or I've only just noticed it that it's like really popular now, and I think the flick is. I prefer it if for a righty flick to the open side. If you have that like release and go, I think it can be better and safer than one of these.
What's the distance that we're talking about here?
Like just a little dump.
That's interesting because I know you have a really good lefty backhand. So I'm surprised that you wouldn't say the lefty backhand over the righty flick.
I think I can get more separation from my defender with the righty flick and more snap. So if it's like really windy and you're still kind of close and cramped with that lefty. But yeah, my coach taught all this early. And when the motion is natural, to me, it makes more sense than the righty backhand.
What about a push pass?
Even worse. Unless you're like really good at push passing, which I'm not. I don't tend to throw those in the game.
I've never coached someone to throw a push pass really, but there are a couple of youth players that I have coached who have just naturally had very strong push passes.
To a dump on the open side?
Like for a couple yards upfield, kind of like that potential lefty backhand short flick area.
Okay, if it's a short flick area, then if it's like a chisel coming like from backfield for power position, I'll do a little lefty.
Yeah.
But if I'm just throwing to an open side dump to go up line, I'll use a flick. So I understand the push pass in that situation. It's really good.
I think I could see Reddit having a lot of different opinions on that. So I think a good hot take for sure. Cool. Next question. So you say you didn't play kind of like youth or high school ultimate, and then kind of after college, you went pretty quickly to playing at like a pretty high level, like going to Fury and then Team USA. What do you feel like kind of helped you accelerate your development that quickly?
I'm not really sure. My coaches once said somewhere, like I started playing in college and like the jump from my first year to my second year was pretty big. And they said it was probably because I played club over the summer. And it was like, and I played every summer season with a club team. And I think it was like different mixed teams throughout my whole high school career. And I don't feel like I made an impact on those teams, but I think just like playing a lot and being in like a new setting helped me. And I think the only reason that I made the 2019 like U24 is because of the end of my college performance. Like there were so many people on my team who were also like at the same level of athleticism or throwing, or and had been that way for a while. And I think visibility certainly had helped. But also I think the most important thing was just like playing all the time.
I'm curious about that. So you played club all 5 summers after each year of college ultimate, and you played 5 years of college ultimate.
Yeah.
How would you recommend that a college player balance that? Because one season of college ultimate is already so draining. Like if someone is worried about burnout, but they still really want to get better, what would you recommend someone do with that situation?
Yeah, that's tough. I remember, like, I think all through college, I didn't have a single break from Frisbee. And I think it's because, like, I don't remember experiencing a burnout, which is crazy to me now because I do go through, like, waves of burnout. But I'll have, like, short breaks in between, like, college and, not college, club and WL, where I can, like, take a few weeks off. I think the only way to like quell burnout really that I've seen or felt is to like not play for a while, or like focus on different activities that maybe you feel more like you want to do. Like on my off times now, I'll do a lot of hiking or just like stuff in the gym that feels good, or just not lifting for a little bit, which also sometimes feels good, or Goalty if you're into that. But yeah, in college, I think I was so committed to the college team that I never felt that burnout. Not that I don't feel committed to my teams now, but it was new and fresh and like a new sport that I really wanted to get better at. So yeah.
Did you have any concerns for your health and your body throughout that time period playing so much Frisbee, or do you think you were just such a well-conditioned high school athlete that it was a natural transition for you?
Yeah, I've as far as I can remember into my youth, I was always doing some kind of sport. So I was lucky enough not to have any serious injuries. I think I had like one hamstring strain in college. I didn't really lift until later in college, and it wasn't like structured. It was just like
not even in track in high school. I thought high school track was generally pretty serious about lifting.
Not mine. Toward like I think my last year in high school, it was like me and only a couple other people who ended up going or qualifying for CIF prelims and onward. And at that point, my coach was like, "Oh, why don't we like try out the?" My coach was incredible. Mr. Mills was great. He was the coding teacher at school, and I think also history. Anyway, was not like the P coach or anything, but he had knowledge on lifting. So we just like I started doing very basic lifting movements, but I think I remember maybe like 5 individual times that we were actually, it was like a cage at the back of a field that was not incredibly well stocked. So yeah,
that's
pretty much
classic track and field setup. Like I see that a lot even in college now. Like track teams will lift under the bleachers or something. It's pretty sick.
Yeah, it was cool. It was always quiet. It was just like a good place to learn, not feel stressed about your peers.
So I know you mentioned like kind of handling burnout now, like with everything going on. Do you kind of like plan out periods to give yourself times off, like from a physical perspective with everything going on? Because I know you have the pro season, club season, and then the international scene. I'm sure you're playing close to all year round. Like, are you planning ahead for specific off seasons, or is it more like kind of as your body needs?
Yeah, I think so. Mike Haddock does my lifting programming, and there's built-in like recovery, and we've structured. He's helped me structure it in a way that my body feels really balanced and not overworked or underworked. I feel like there are times where, like, after a really busy work season and competitive season, where I just like I'll feel that I need to take a break from, like, my brain is tired from all the physical exertion I've done, whether it be like competition mentally or like just all the running and lifting, and I'll just take a couple weeks. That's pretty rare though. Yeah, because there aren't many breaks for me lately.
Shout out, Mike. That makes me think. I was at the gym right before this, and today I was doing rear foot elevated split squats, and I was like, wow, this is the worst thing I've ever done. And, I generally enjoy my training a lot and going to the gym. It's like a really satisfying and rewarding experience. But there's some things like those rear foot elevated split squats that I just dread every single time. But of course I do them because I know they're such a good exercise. Is there anything in your programming that you dread like that you just hate, but you just got to suck it up and do it?
Yeah, I will say I love rear foot elevated split squats. Mike does a lot of single. I love that. Mike does a lot of single leg stuff, and I really feel like it's benefited me the most. And funny you mentioned the thing I dread. In the last portions programming, he had back squats back in there, which my body doesn't, I'll do the squat. I don't love it. It doesn't always feel right. And I feel like this time I kind of unlocked something that I was just starting to build on. And so we were doing the new programming for this, this chunk or whatever. And he was like, okay, we can pick between trap bar, deadlifts or back squats. And I was like, I hate to say it, but I think I need to stick with the back squats. So I still dread them, but I feel now that they're doing something really good for me. So I'm doing them.
I think that's huge too, because like a conversation that I'll have with a lot of clients is like, if they say they've been lifting for a while, and then if we can find something where they feel like they get value, like that's always great. Like if somebody's never lifted before, then you can do all the basic stuff and they'll get, a ton of value. But if they've been lifting for, a lot of time, then it's like finding those small things that they can get better at is huge. And so I think that's a good point for like a lot of people where they might be like, oh, I've been lifting for a year, so like I don't need a back squat anymore. Like it's not going to do anything for me. But like you've been playing and lifting for a while and getting benefits from like a basic exercise like back squat, I think is a good teaching point for maybe the average player.
Yeah, he does a lot of rotation between bigger lifts and a lot of like accessory work that is really specific. But I think even like bringing old stuff back in and like trying new things, it keeps it very exciting, and I feel like it's really beneficial for my on-field performance too.
I think we had a question on Reddit that was something along the lines of like, what was like the most beneficial thing you added to your training? Is it?
Yeah. It's I mean, that's basically it. It says, what addition to your training made the biggest difference for you?
Mike, for sure. We met on a plane on the way to nationals, club nationals, I think. Like we were sitting next to each other.
What year was that?
Oh gosh.
Like 2019, probably?
I want to say 2019. Yeah. Yeah. And I can't imagine not having the programming I have now and the support from Mike. I just feel like it's totally changed me as my brain as an athlete. So yeah.
Coaches who know what they're doing are good to have.
That might be a hot take nowadays. I feel like I've had so many conversations recently with people where I have to like convince them that lifting has value, or I just hear people that are like, I play at the level I'm at now without lifting, so you don't need it. And it's like,
yeah, what level is that for those people?
So that's reassuring to hear from both of you that, wow, lifting is good.
Yeah, and if not for performance, I feel very for injury prevention in general. If anything ever gets tweaky, which happens normally in Frisbee, Mike will help me out with that, and it's never from the lifting, but the lifts that I do help with those things. It'll be like tightness or something, and I just need to. Anyway, yeah, recommend having a good lifting program you could add.
Good stuff. I had a question from Instagram that I think would be kind of a good segue here. So a lot of people asking about your defense, right? And so like how to get more Ds, like positioning, IQ. I guess, yeah, are there certain like tips or things that you think about defensively that have really helped elevate your game?
That's interesting. Defense is actually the thing that I feel like I've been working on the most and still need to work on the most. When I got cut from World Games, one of the things was like there's like a standard of defense you need to have, and it's almost pretty much shutting your person down. And I feel like my defense through like college and club up till now has been very much like stay off a little, get close when you can, like try and get
like baiting Ds.
Yeah, which feels like more natural for me. But I'm trying to something that Serge mentioned to us last season was like you need to submit yourself to, I forget the exact quote, you need to submit yourself to failure or to annihilation or something, to like see what you're capable of, something along those lines. And so I've tried a lot of like what does it look like to only force your person out? And yeah, I've talked to a lot of people about that, and it's really hard, but I think that's been very beneficial for me just from a learning standpoint. I would say being tall has helped me a lot, and being long has helped me a lot in defense, but also like trying to anticipate how high in the stall the thrower is, and if you're on the marker on a cutter, like how can you set yourself up for success when the stall gets high? Like if you know that it's coming, what can you take away? So anyway, a lot of learning to be done in that category.
I'm curious. So you said like only forcing your person out. So is that like an example of like no matter the situation, I guess, like having a specific goal and trying to stick to that and then see like how you adapt?
Yeah, and I don't do it all the time. Like especially on Super Boom, we have a defense where we're person, but the back, I'm usually the back, and I'll try to force switches so that somebody can stay in the deep space. But like even if I go to pick up or league or something, just being like, okay, do I feel comfortable just staying tight and in front of my person? You know, unless they're on the break side and I can like take a step off, but it's been a good mental challenge and physical challenge for me, I think.
Yeah. Are there like certain things that you, I guess, go to help like prep for mentally, like before a big game? Like, and you've played at some of the biggest stages in the sport. Like, are there, some things that you do maybe leading up to a game or like right before a game?
I had a lot of trouble with this up until this year or last year, where it got progressively worse before big games, where I like knew I was going to be nervous, and I got there and I was nervous from being nervous, and like got to a point where I was like nauseous, and I couldn't like get out of my head until the game really got going a little bit. And then I read a book called The Inner Game of Tennis that talks about like your two selves, and the one that's like very self-critical and the one that's like can play lights out, where like you're not really thinking about any of those outward pressures. And I still like very much struggle with nerves, and that will affect me physically, like how I play. I'm like a little shakier. Sometimes I'll be like very impulsive. I'll be like, oh my gosh, that's not like what I've been building to. So yeah, but really have been working on focusing on like just Frisbee. Sometimes I'll look at the grass and like really in detail, and I'll be like, oh, that blade has like a little bit of yellow on the top. Just kind of like taking my head out of the situation. calms my body down. And then once I start playing, I'm like, oh, it's fine. I still don't like to play the first point of a game, especially in the WL where like there's like the 30-minute buildup of like you're standing in line with everyone, they're calling the names, they're like the captains are doing their thing, and you're sitting there like, oh my gosh, it's gonna start. Oh my gosh, it's gonna start. What is the meaning of this game? And there's only 6 games in the season, and we have to clinch our spot, you know. So the first point is always like, I'll wait, I'll watch them do their thing, and then I feel fine.
Do you feel like an equal amount of nervousness, like kind of depending or across all formats, like WL, club, and then when you play internationally?
I think the worst is in club, and then WL, and then internationally. Yeah, I don't really know why, but even like in league or pickup, sometimes I'll be on the line. I think it's because I feel like I have to prove myself as a player on a pickup field where I'm like, okay, I can't mess this up too bad. Like I have to prove that I can like throw and catch and be a threat on the field. So I think that's partially where my nerves come from, which is another thing is like trying to figure out why I get so nervous. And I think that's the main thing is like outward perception and personal perception of myself, and like not wanting to, or like having a vision of what that should look like and being worried about breaking that perception of myself.
Do you still play a lot of pickup on a regular basis?
Yeah. In Sacramento right now, we have SUPA, which is the Sacramento Ultimate Players Association, I think. And they run some really great leagues. I haven't been able to do the last couple because they landed on days that I'm helping coach at UC Davis, but there's like pickup on Tuesdays. There's been a pickup on Wednesdays a couple of times. The people are really cool. So I feel like that's the best way for me to get Frisbee specific cardio, other than like you can do a field workout and then that feels good, but there's a difference with like, you know, running and playing on a field. And then I can also pick things to work on, like a force out defense or like a flick huck or, you know, things like that. Handling if I want to.
So pickup, you use it as kind of like a training tool?
Yeah. I mean, it's fun also. But yeah, I feel like if I fall off of just playing during the week or over like a month or two, I can feel that change in game situations.
In a similar vein, there's a question from Reddit here that we might as well tackle real quick. What do you love about living in and playing Ultimate in Sacramento?
I do like Sacramento. It's definitely different from like I was in Oakland before and then LA before that. The people are really cool. Scott, who runs the leagues, has been like just a really incredible person who I can see puts so much value into like growing the Frisbee scene in Sacramento. And yeah, the leagues are really high level. The people are really friendly. Yeah, so I think the Frisbee portion is probably my favorite part of SAC. The people I've met through that. So yeah. Some of the nature is pretty cool, a lot of wetlands and stuff.
Right. Guess it's a good time to pause real quick and say, for those that are on the YouTube live, so we're with Dena doing a live recording of the podcast. So Manny and I have a lot of questions put together, but also from Instagram and Reddit that we're going through. But if there's anybody here in the YouTube live, you pretty much get priority with questions. So drop your questions down in the chat if you'd like. Can get those answered for you pretty quickly. I guess my next question is, I'm sure with like the different teams that you play for, and kind of throughout your career, you probably had like a lot of different roles, right? Like cutter or like a defender, or like times where you have to be a deep threat. How do you kind of adapt your role depending on the team or just like year to year?
Yeah, I think the biggest difference was college to club or college to world team, because I was used to, I guess I should start with, in college I grew into a role that was like main cutter, kind of very involved in everything all the time, like playing majority of the points. And then going to the U24 team, it was like, whoa, I'm just a cutter who's like kind of on the, like wasn't really confident as a cutter in a different stage like that. And I think I tend to defer my cuts a lot, which can be good, like if you're creating space, but it can take you out of a game pretty easily when there's other people who are very confident at cutting. So that was probably the hardest transition. And then going to Fury, where a similar situation where everybody's like really, really good. So you just have to find a different thing to pull joy and success from rather than like touching the disc very often. Nancy Sun once told me, she was like, yeah, you didn't touch the disc at all, but you took your person away the entire time. And so finding success in those things still feels pretty evenly weighted to like playing a bunch, touching the disc a bunch, or like making a bunch of plays. So I think now it's I like having different roles on different teams because it helps me to kind of figure out what I can work on or what I can find success in. Yeah, definitely. Same with the work team that I was on this last 2024. Again, I was like a D-line cutter and I didn't touch the disc much, but it was like a very rewarding experience for me regardless. So
Is that process usually kind of like within yourself of like finding things to find success with, or is that a conversation with like the captains and coaches as well?
I think so. I wasn't really aware that was something that I could. It was Nancy in that one moment where she was like, you just have to find like ways to feel good about yourself in different ways. Like I think the most like through college, the biggest thing for me was like, yeah, I did a lot of really cool stuff, and I still do feel that way sometimes where it's like, oh, I mean, great, I got a layout D and like, wow, I can ride that. Like I felt like very strong in that moment, and that's what made me feel good about the half or whatever. And yeah, ever since Nancy brought that up to me, I've been like, oh, okay. You know, I shut down my person for an entire point. I had a friend be like, oh yeah, I had 0 turns. Manny, you've done that where you're like, yeah, I had no turns in the whole weekend. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I've never even considered like keeping that stat in my head. And now I do, which can be good and bad, but I think for the state I'm in now, it's beneficial. It's like, okay, I can value myself as like, I'll try and be a reliable cutter with no turns, which I don't think that's happened yet, but we'll see.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I haven't had a tournament with 0 turns in quite some time. I am really proud of it whenever it does happen. Nowadays, I would probably be pretty happy with like a turn every 2 games or something. I think that would be a good benchmark for me.
Which is incredible because you handle, which you're touching the disc much more than a cutter, I assume. So, yeah, crazy stat there.
Was that PEC West?
At PEC West, like how many turns I have?
Yeah.
Probably, I think I had 2.
There was one kind of recently where you said you had 0 turns.
Kind of recently. I mean, I haven't played any tournaments recently besides TEP. I definitely didn't have any turn. I definitely had turns at TEP. I was shooting it a lot. Last season, I don't think I had any tournaments with 0 turns. That would have been pretty sick though.
We just got a question in the chat. Maybe you can touch on this too. How do you stay confident after a few turns as a handler?
Oh, Manny, do you want to go for that one? Because I think if I was a handler and I was turning it a bunch, I'd be like, oh.
Yeah, I mean, after a few turns, I mean, if I had a few turns in one game, that'd be pretty rough for me. It has happened before. for sure, though, at key moments. And I mean, I tend to just rely on my teammates picking me up. I mean, they know that I'm a skilled player. They know that like I'm doing my best to make choices and try to help the offense. And you know, if my coach or whoever is calling lines decides that I'm not the right person in that moment, then I'll just focus on supporting from the sideline. But yeah, I guess I think about my training and the work I've done to put myself in that position, and I try to focus on my teammates.
That's a good answer.
Dena, do you have anything to add to that? I know you're not a handler, but kind of just as, you know, a high level player, anything on that?
Yeah, actually, I had a really weird our WL game against Arizona. They're at their away. The disc was just like my legs were kind of off, like things weren't timed well, and I was just all these like really strange turns. And Vendetta was like, that's fine. You're such a good player. It doesn't even matter. You just move forward. And I was like, right, done. And it's like you know, you've been playing and you have this whole history of who you are as a player, and like a few points with a bunch of turns doesn't define that. That's something that Brett told me in kind of I forgot the exact wording, but it was like a couple bad moments that don't define like what you've built. I don't want to butcher that, but that's also very helpful for me to think about.
Yeah. So I'm curious. So you've so far in this conversation, so you've quoted, I guess, 4 different teammates or past coaches, and so it's obvious like you're actively like seeking to learn or like take advice from the people around you. Is there something that like really sticks out as like maybe the best advice you've ever received?
Ooh, that's tough. I do think what Nancy told me about finding joy in those moments of like what you define your success as, I think has been the most impactful in the way that I view my play. I'm sure, you know, Carlo and Alicia from were my college coaches, and they like created me as a player, and I'm sure there's a million things that they said that are like locked in there that have formed me as a player. But yeah, that one thing from Nancy really kind of clung, or it's like up here right now. So
Yeah. And I think, yeah, to your point too, I think if you get like enough good advice, then it just kind of like structures your thought process, and you stop even thinking about like recalling it. It's just like who you are now, right?
Yeah.
Manny, do you have anything best advice you've ever received?
That is a difficult one. I think I don't know about like best one sole piece of advice that I've received that has been life-changing, but I think just trying to be really coachable and good at taking feedback in general is one of the most important traits you can have. And just like, you know, like especially my rookie year on Sockeye, I was receiving a bunch of feedback from all the vets. They all had opinions, and a lot of the times it would be conflicting feedback. And every time I would, even if I disagreed with it, I would just be like, all right, I'll try to implement that. And sometimes, you know, I use my critical thinking and I was like, okay, that was stupid. I'm actually not going to try to implement that. But like, it's good to gather that data and gather those opinions from more experienced players and try to use them to help shape your own game.
Yeah, I like that. Is there anything on Reddit kind of along about kind of training or anything like that before we make kind of a segue? There's a good one on Instagram about layouts. Like, was there something specific you did to train your layouts?
Can I combine that with a Reddit question real quick?
Let's do it.
what is your mentality on defense, and how do you mentally think through playing tight D versus poachy roles?
Especially now, because that's something I've been working on. I'm just like, okay, this person can't get the disc. I'm going to stay tight. I have a tendency to let, if I'm guarding on the break side and they're cutting all the way across the open side, I have a tendency to get close, but not get all the way and just like catch up. And I'll do that in the handler space too. So now I'm really, in my brain, it's like, okay, catch up and beat them there so that they can't get the disc and they have to look to another option. I feel like that has helped me a lot with my person defense. And then for poachy defense, that's a little harder for me because I'm less like smart poachy, more like, I don't want to say lazy poachy, but like, when do I need to be close to my player and when do I not need to be? Like if I feel like I can beat them to a space, if they decide to go there, then I'll like play off a little and kind of let them run around until I feel like I need to get closer. So I'm probably not the best person to ask about that, but I guess being smart about where the throw is going, where your cutter is going to go, and just trying to be in that space or ready for the disc to go to that space or your player to go to that space.
Anything on the layouts or training for layouts?
Oh, not really. There's some footage out there of some of my earliest like layout D attempts, and it's like my foot doesn't leave the ground. I just like kind of go horizontal, and then it's like knee, chest, and like neck, and it's the most like janky looking thing. Was not good for my body at all. I just think of like something clicked at one point where I was able to keep my like core and neck pretty tight when I went forward, and then like a couple of years after that, being able to push off more and get like a little bit of height off the ground. And I haven't had like years ago, there'd be a layout and I'd be like, oh, that one felt like really like kind of knocked me around, and now I don't feel that I have that anymore. I think it has to do with the strength training I've been doing. When your core is tight and you can like absorb that impact, it just kind of feels fine.
I think, yeah, I agree with that. Was there anything that kind of helped with that initial like fear of the layouts, or is that something you didn't really experience?
A little bit. There was my rookie year or my first year playing, one of my teammates, Drift, who was also her first year playing, she just like, it like clicked for her very fast, and she was just very fearless when she was going for a disc. And I think that motivated me to be like, okay, I should do that too. Like that was like a lot of fun. And then once I did it a couple times, it was fine. Our coaches also had like it rained one time and we did layouts in the mud, which was great and fun. And it was also like, oh, it's not so bad to land properly on the ground. Yeah,
like you were exposed to it in kind of a non-painful way right off the bat then.
Yeah, well, there were some, not many, but enough that it was like made me want to get the form correct, because I'd have like real like massive bruises on my knees, and it was like, that can't be, because I feel like if you don't push off enough, the weight of your opposite leg kind of just reaches the ground first, and it tends to be the knee. So it's not great. Right.
Yeah, I've kind of one last, I guess, longer question, and then maybe we can go into some rapid fire stuff off of Reddit as well. How do you feel about the growth and direction of women's ultimate, or like women's sports in general?
I think it's obvious now. If you're a person on social media, you can see the viewership and money going into women's sports being so much greater. And I think it's because of visibility and access to visibility. Like, it's always been this cool, and it just, I think it can only get better from here. I think something that I was missing as a young girl was like, it was like, oh, you can just like play sports, but like later on, it's like the men who are the professional athletes who like make a career out of it. I remember being in high school or thinking about back on it now, entering high school and being like, well, I can't do sports after high school, like that it's just gonna end in high school. And I didn't realize that all through my high school career, or I could have like, I loved sports and competition so much. I could have like picked a sport and like trained but it never really struck me that was something that I was able to do. And I think now that kind of passion and excitement is very accessible to young people. So yeah, I just feel like it's only going to get better from here.
Yeah. And I think
go support women's sports if you don't already.
At least like, so I worked with like the University of Texas's men's and women's basketball team last year, and just the amount of like growth we saw in the viewership was crazy. I think one of our games against LSU had like 1.3 million viewers or something on ESPN. And so,
Whoa.
Yeah, the growth is definitely crazy. And then I can speak from my experience and a lot of coaches I've talked to, like the women's team worked like 1,000 times harder than the men's team. And so you can definitely see that like passion and energy and just desire to get better and grow in the sport is definitely there.
Yeah. And I think it'll begin or continue to embed itself in like youth culture, or like just among genders, like more acceptance of like everybody can be competitive and good at sports, and it just becoming more of a equal
like
situation.
Normalized thing kind of.
Yeah.
Do you know Theo Vaughn, the comedian? Are you familiar with him? Manny, do you know who that is?
Oh no, not the podcast. No.
Yeah,
I've never heard of Theo Vaughn.
He's like a podcast comedian guy. He like grew up in, I'll keep this short, but he like grew up in Louisiana, kind of like a little conservative. So like not a guy you would traditionally expect to be like a big advocate of women's sports, but he was on his podcast recently talking about like how much he loves the WNBA. And I was like, oh, this is sick. Like, so yeah. I guess we can kind of segue here as we're kind of coming up on time soon, maybe into some more rapid fire stuff. Manny, anything good from Reddit?
This one got a lot of upvotes. Dena, what are your top 3 French fry shapes? I feel like there aren't even that many shapes of French fries.
Yeah, 3.
I can think of 3, or I can think of like 4. There's like a like a shoestring, like a regular shaped one, a waffle one, and a curly one. Curly one is definitely the first one. The texture and funness alone, and then I think a regular one, and then maybe a waffle one if it's like really crispy. I don't eat a lot of fries, but if it's a sweet potato fry,
yeah, I can dig that.
Yeah.
The curly fries are definitely the most fun.
Yeah,
in principle.
Yeah. Agree.
Okay, here I'll paraphrase this question. So in the men's division this year, it felt like towards the end of the season we had kind of a resurgence of like the deep game that Rhino brought back versus kind of the small ball that dominated through Truck's run. Watching the women's final, it seems like there was a big contrast to that because Fury was able to shut down Scandal's deep game pretty well in that game through some pretty aggressive deep coaching, which you were a big part of. How do you see that being balanced in ultimates in the women's division or other divisions, if you want to speak on them, over the coming years? Deep game versus small ball. Like, where do you think offense is headed?
Personally, I'm a fan of the deep game because I'm a cutter and that's like my favorite thing to do. I do think though that a successful team should be really good at both. I don't know that I'm as well versed in like the trends that we've had over time between like small ball, big ball, which I only became aware of it with that quote that Rafi Hayes put out there that was like deep game is back or something like that.
And sexier than ever.
Yeah, and it is. It's so, if you can set something up really nicely like that and have success in a deep game, I think that's like the most fun to, as a cutter, to play in or to watch. But if you find a team that can effectively shut that down, you need to be able to have good small ball too. So I don't know. Maybe you all have better insight on that.
Well, I mean, I think what you said about doing both is really valuable, because if you are just a lot more focused on only one, I think it's going to be easier to defend. But like Rhino, they have a really strong deep game, which opens up a lot of small ball handler motion, and also motion with their like handler type motion with their cutters as well. And a lot of points they're able to just like churn unders after unders because teams are so scared of them deep. Which is funny. I think when Sockeye played Rhino in the past season, we honestly did pretty well defensively. Like we probably forced about 5 or 6 turns on them when we played them at regionals, and I feel like most of those turns were in the deep space.
So like high risk, high reward, but
yeah. But I mean, yeah, just because a team has like, you know, in Rhino's case, it's a reputation that is well earned. It doesn't mean that they won't make mistakes or can't be challenged in that area.
Mm-hmm. And maybe it's something that fluctuates over a game, like you said. Like they're just giving you the under because they're scared of the deep. So you take the unders, and then they take the unders, and you take deep again. So
yeah.
Dina, we have another question in the chat. Do you still have times where you take over a game like you did in college? A lot of times. What's the mindset when that happens?
Not really. It'll happen in pickup sometimes where if I get around the ball and the people around me are willing to allow me to have that moment, I'll like dish up, and it feels really good to kind of like run nonstop down the field in different directions to a score. I think it doesn't make as much sense for me as a cutter on teams like Fury or like Worlds teams. I think the only place that I do feel really good about that is on beach. I feel like that's an area where I feel really confident in being able to get separation from my person and then keep running. But I don't feel like I've wanted or needed to take over. I think, you know, who I'm surrounded by is like, oh, great, I'll pass it off and hit the sideline and I'm fine. And yeah. What was the other part of that question? I forgot. Or did that answer it?
I think, yeah, that's pretty, I think it's just, what's the mindset when that happens? But yeah, I think you answered the question well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like Fury is a team where your format is not really a takeover format, right? Like no one player on that team dominates like a lot more than anybody else. Is that true?
Yeah, I would say some of the handlers do a very good job of, like, if it gets muddled downfield, doing that every other thing. Or like Anna in some of our games will like do that, and then she'll go deep, and then she'll come back up. Like she's everywhere when we lose our structure. She's kind of the like, she was able to like pull us back in to give everybody a second. She's taking over, and then once we get back into it, it's a little more spread.
Here's a question from Reddit. How often do you rewatch the 2019 college final?
I think in the first like week we watched it a couple times, and then like once during the pandemic in like a video chat setting. Too stressed by that game. If I even watch the final point, like my heart rate is like,
I'd be like, rewatching that every week probably if
it was
that game. You know, really underrated game that people don't talk about enough is the UCSD versus Carleton quarterfinal. People, you know, obviously that catch that you had, you know, incredible throw. Just kidding. It was a great catch. That catch you had at the end of the game is like, there are a lot of photos and videos of that, and it's reposted a lot. But that whole game, like the people don't know the context behind that catch of UCSD being down basically the whole game, right? Like, did you ever have a lead until the end? Until the last couple points?
I think we had a lead, but it was like by one. It was a very upwind, downwind game. So our strategy that whole game was like, if we maintain, we got like one break, I think. I barely remember. I do like this game better than the final. Our strategy was huck downwind and then play D because it was that severe. And so we like both teams kind of had a couple breaks. And so it was like, we had lost in pre-quarters last year. So this was like, are we really going to go out in quarters? I think we needed a break and a hold to win. And we did that in the last like handful of points. And it was just like, that was a crazy game. I think that was the most fun game of my lifetime.
And
stressful but fun.
At the same time as that game, Dartmouth was playing Western Washington on the adjacent fields, and that game was also super close. And I think Dartmouth was also down in that game and had to come back. So
yeah, it's hard in college with an upwind downwind.
Playing in that tournament, I hated it because of the wind. It was just like not normal. It was a different game than normal ultimate, but it was objectively a really exciting bracket.
Yeah, I think there was like one game, our semifinal game, the wind kind of died down, and it was like, we're free and we played our game and we played so well. I think the score was
you won by like 10.
Yeah. And if there hadn't been wind, I think the tournament would have been very different.
Do you think you would have done better in that tournament without wind?
Yeah, I think the way that our coaches had built up our cutters and our handlers to all be familiar with the set and like be very confident and strong as cutters and handlers, it was such a beautiful, like even to this day when I play with them, some of those players on Super Bloom, it's like I know exactly what they want. They know what I want. It's very easy and like familiar. And so I think the reason we were able to do well, even in those windy games, was because of the like trust and chemistry we had built. And you can see that with the handlers and in those upwind points that were kind of crazy. Just insane wind.
Cool. I think we got time for about 2 more questions here and then we'll wrap it up. So what are 3 things for someone trying to make that jump from college or like low to mid level club to then getting to that elite level?
I think you really just have to, the first thing that worked for me the most was just really diving into it and like committing to playing very often, and building confidence in that. I also think building athleticism is crucial. If you like to have good enough stamina on the field to shut down your person and then go deep. And then if there's several turns on a point, being able to stay strong and able to run, which is hard for anyone, but I think having that level brings you up a little more. So like lifting and sprinting, and then pushing your limits, I guess. The thing that Serge told us last season, seeing how far you can push yourself, I think pushes your actual abilities a little further than they were previously. If you just you have to see where you can get to, and slowly you can like surpass that level. Yeah, I think those things. Nice.
Do you have an example of that last one, like of pushing your limits, or like maybe how you applied that?
Yeah, for me right now it's defense, and it's like I feel like I've gotten better marginally at personal defense and person defense in the last like 4 or 5 or so. Ever since Serge told us that, I've been like, okay, I'm gonna force my person out, and more often I feel that I'm taking away the first and second option, even though it's like very scary to just be under, which, yeah.
Nice. The last question I have is, this is my favorite question, so I ask this to everybody as kind of the final question, but I like to ask questions, right? And I like to know, like, what are the questions that keep kind of the best minds in anything up at night? So I want to know, like, in basketball, what keeps LeBron James up at night thinking about basketball? So for you, Dena, like, what what's a big question about Frisbee that you have that you don't have the answer to yet?
Like personally or from like a strategic?
Ooh, either. Whatever you feel like the biggest question is.
Or one of each.
Yeah, that too.
Strategically, I don't think I'm a very strategic Frisbee brain. I think I pull more joy from like the team itself and from playing. Trying to get better at strategy, but it's not my passion, I would say. I think the question that would keep me up at night is like, I know that I'm not like very satisfied, or I can't be satisfied without reaching the highest level of a sport. And so the question is like, can I be satisfied with not reaching the highest level, and how? Yeah, I just think about that all the time now, especially like after World Games. I was like, oh, okay, I didn't even make the second tryout. Who's to say that I'll be playing at that level or higher, which I would have to be in 4 years to then make the second tryout and then make the actual team. And so figuring out for myself what I can find value in, or how I can be proud of myself in and on other teams, and also outside of Frisbee, like how do I, which, you know, I'm sure a lot of people who play struggle with that. Is like, what are you outside of the sport you play? So
Definitely.
which, yeah.
Yeah, I think going back to like the self-worth thing you were talking about earlier, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dena, might I recommend an alternative chill sport, such as pickleball?
Too chill, I think. I played it one-on-one once, and that was a little better, but
It's as chill as you want it to be.
yeah.
You can definitely make it less chill.
Yeah, maybe tennis.
Tennis, yeah.
Yep. It would carry over well to Ultimate, apparently.
Or I think I'll switch into sand volleyball as a
Maybe Ultimate would carry over well to tennis.
It does.
yeah. We'll see.
Cool. That's everything I had. We're kind of at time here. Manny, did you have anything else?
No, I think that's pretty good.
Awesome. I think if it's cool with you guys, we'll give it like 30 seconds, see if anybody in the chat has got anything, and then if not, we'll wrap it up.
Cool. Manny, how was your smoothie?
It was I mean, it doesn't taste that good really. It's just like it's a lot of calories and protein and carbs, and that's what I needed in that moment after those rear foot elevated split squats.
Keep doing them. They're so good. Do you do them with dumbbells or with a bar?
Smith machine.
What is that?
Justin's big on the Smith machine. It's the one where imagine like a squat rack, but the bar can only move up and down. It's fixed on a vertical plane.
Yeah.
And so, which means you can do a lot more weight because certain muscles, Justin, correct me if I'm saying anything wrong here, your quads and your glutes are more isolated.
Exactly. No, that was perfect. Yeah.
There you go.
Cool. We got one last one, and I think we'll wrap it up. Dena, do you enjoy heckling from the crowd do you enjoy heckling from the crowd in the WUL?
Sometimes in that Arizona game, I didn't hear any of the heckling other than not a puller, which like I did throw some out of bounds. So I think that's a funny one. Apparently people were like saying overrated and stuff like that, which is just like
Specifically about you?
Yeah.
Wow.
Which I know.
It was a little uncalled for.
Yeah.
I know. It's there. I think there's. I love.
Was it
heckling.
in response to anything?
It must have been.
Was there anything contentious in that game?
Not really. I think it's just a passionate crowd. I like inter-team heckling, like when you're really comfortable with people. That kind of like playful bits and things. But when it becomes like I think there's a limit sometimes. You know, it didn't bother me, obviously. But I know it could bother some people. So yeah, majority of the time, fan. If it goes too far, less of a fan.
Makes sense. Cool. Everybody that's tuned in currently, thank you guys so much for being here. And Dena, Manny, thank you guys for being here as well.
Thanks. This was
Thank
fun.
both of you.
All right.